Hello and welcome to the end. We had an amazing run here with Love and Bantraphyll, and now we're going to talk about it because we reached an ending, and I think it was a fairly satisfying ending, and it was definitely an ending.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is more than I've gotten out of a game of Firbrands in the past. So we wanted to talk about it and our feelings because we definitely had feelings last week.
Yeah, there were a lot of feelings that come out of like the past 7 weeks.
Yeah, it's true.
Definitely culminating in a lot of emotional things happening.
Yeah.
Last Saturday.
Definitely. We were gonna do some behind the scenes, like what was going on with some of these characters. I'm looking at you, CH4.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Do you know what our total playtime was?
I don't.
I did some math about halfway through, but I think we ended up at like 8 or 9 hours, roughly.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Each time was like about an hour and a half.
Approximately.
And we had some that went longer, some went shorter.
Yeah, I think we ended up at 5 hours after episode 4. And I think we've been at around an hour and a half since then. So we're...
That maths out.
Maths out. Yep.
Yeah,
we're good mathing.
Somewhere in that space. Addition.
So, like, what feelings do you guys have about what we've done here? About what this has become?
I want to do it again.
Yeah.
I want to have another long-form Firbrands game. It was real good.
I was thinking about this, and I feel like if we're going to do this again, we should definitely do The King is Dead instead, or at least in between.
I have so many mixed feelings about that system, though, but I think it's because the last time I played it, I did not have fun with it.
I will admit, when I played it, I was a little punch drunk. It was... I started when it was after midnight, and then I went going until I could not brain anymore. But I had a really good time. So,
what's the difference? What's the bigger the differences between the two?
There's a few more games.
A few different games.
Yeah, and you keep score more directly between
which
I didn't like. Sides.
Okay,
I didn't like that part. And the way that they changed some of the games just did not... I think the biggest issue when I played it is we started out with what was the equivalent of a tactical skirmish, and that just ruined everything for me.
Yeah, I could definitely see starting at that being not a great place.
Got it.
So.
I think what would be good for I think it'd be better if there were a couple more games that weren't during this game something huge is about to happen. Because really, if you don't want to have, if you don't want to have a fight, or you there's really only 2 games designed around let's have our characters get together and talk about something, or not fight or not do something big and physical.
Yeah,
because there's tactical skirmish, there's chase, there's meeting sword to sword.
Free for
all, and those are all a fight or a big thing is happening, and then I guess there's 3. So it's dance, meeting, talking over food, and then stealing time together,
and then an animated disagreement. But that's not really talking.
Yeah, I don't consider that to be that's still a very
that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's still a big thing. Clearly, because you're doing it because you're trying to convince people, oh, my side's better, and you're trying to bring them and make them do something. And because because it kind of happened when I was like, oh, this could be longer term, so we're not gonna like jump into stuff right away or whatever. But like second episode, it was like, oh, we've already played all of the games where you don't do anything huge, so something huge has to happen, I guess. I don't know what they would. I don't know what. Yeah, I'm not sure what exactly how, but like, it would be nice to see some games where like, or like if like everyone else has done a game where they're like I don't really want to do a big fight, but that's all the games that we haven't played today, so I guess we're fighting.
And I mean, in the game that I played of The King is Dead, even in a game where we were fighting, it wasn't necessarily to the death. It could have been like, there was one where my character had to step in an honor duel for someone else in my family. Like, me and the other knight, we were proxies for a bullshit duel between other nobility, and we didn't really want to be there. We were just upholding the family, you know? And then when we did a free-for-all, it was in the context of a tournament, not in a battle per se. And so there's definitely a lot of ways, and I think more so, to have those fights be friendly. I mean, even meeting sword to sword could be on the training grounds, you know?
Yeah.
So, I think that there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of room there that in certain ways Firbrands doesn't really have. Because while you can still have like a meeting on the training grounds or whatever, there's not a lot of like duels or like, here's a tournament for a bunch of mechs where random people who have mechs that are
right. It'd be cool to see instead of like
be part of a resistance.
It could be like having like a competition be a game instead of meeting sword to sword, free for all, or tactical skirmish. Like someone's probably gonna die in all of these games. Like having stuff like that, like kind of like training grounds is a cool one, or like
yeah. One thing that I do like about King is Dead, like in particular, like in regards to what we're talking about now, is that the solitaire game is expanded a fair bit, and it actually has some like mechanical weight behind it, and like you have a much larger list of stuff to pick from, and it's more about it's very specifically about the interaction between the different factions, like and adjusting the balance of power in that way. For instance, I was able to play The King is Dead on Once Upon a Game earlier this week, and we had a moment where I made my house made an alliance with another player's house, which knocked both of us up one step and put like another powerful player like down 2 steps because of it. Like even though they weren't like involved directly, it's still like affected them in.
It was kind of interesting
because of how the balance of power ended up.
I also find it very interesting in how, in the solitaire games, you pick a house that is not your own to mess with. It may tangentially affect you, but you have to pick one of the solitaire games of a different house.
Yeah, and I think that feeds in very well to the central like Firbrands philosophy of like, you're not playing to win, you're playing to make a mess of things.
Yes, definitely.
I think something that could be kind of like, I guess it would if we were gonna like, our sessions would be longer, is if we took our solitaire scenes and made them like a group thing and did kind of like almost like a microscopy kind of thing of like, okay, here's the scene that I want to play, so I'll be playing my character and you guys pick characters around me or whatever, and let's do a thing together.
I like that a lot. I think
that could be kind of cool.
That's definitely a good idea.
Sure.
Also, I just did the math, by the way. 9 hours 28 minutes.
Okay, cool.
I didn't count seconds on that, so we may actually be looking at 9.5 hours if all the seconds added up to 2 minutes, which might. I don't.
Possible.
I didn't bother with that granularity, but that's a lot of game time. that we went through, and we went through a lot of phases.
Yeah. One thing that I started thinking about when I was like writing up the second intro that we were using is that I started kind of considering the game as 2 seasons, or like maybe even more. Like we started in spring, and then we had a summer of turmoil, and then we have the fall. And now we're sort of like with how things went down, we're in the winter. We're going to be in this dark time for a little bit, and then we'll see what spring brings to Bantraphyll. I very much like how that worked out. And do we want to talk about the tonal shift that happened?
I mean,
how the game changed over time?
It definitely changed.
I want to say that it started with the duel.
Yeah.
That was very much like the kickoff point where we took the training gloves off.
That changed a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not just for our characters, and obviously the death of CH4 escalated tensions. But I think we also got to see like that was the first real like conflict that we saw between 2 major factions. Like, we never had a situation where like there was like a chase before that, but there wasn't really any like real hard blows until then.
Yeah, there wasn't like much tension until then. Or, well, different kinds of tension.
Yeah. There was like the building tension.
We had some fights, but they weren't like, there was definitely never the like, okay, well, one of us is going to die today. Like, kind of thing. Like, like we had a sword fight, but it was very much, it wasn't about the fight. It was about me finding out that you weren't as noble as I thought you were, or whatever. Like,
right, because it like in that case, the center wasn't like the conflict wasn't necessarily the fight. The conflict was you wanting something from me that I couldn't give you at that point for convoluted reasons.
Yeah.
That's very, very true. And I think I really liked the choice to just go with, he's dead. And the fact that because of who CH4 was, who he was able to return, which is definitely something that is kind of something you can do in Firbrands that you can't really do in The King is Dead. And that is with the high level of technology, you can have these like death fake outs where, oh, well, he's definitely dead. And then like the next day we come in and it's like, oh, actually.
It's definitely something that we set up about like the setting and like how it worked, because theoretically you could do something like that in The King is Dead as well.
I think it's true. If you
resurrections and stuff.
Weird magic or something.
Weird magic bullshit.
Yeah. We're gonna go full Jon Snow on the whole thing.
I will say this though, if it had been another character that I was dueling with and not CH4, just because we had already talked about how you wanted to explore what it meant for CH4 to die, and the fact that he was AI, so I knew that he would be coming back. That's what made me want to go hard and like, let's do the killing stroke. Let's see what happens. Because it seemed like that would be really interesting to explore. But if it was like Tux's or Kelsa's character, I don't think I would have done that, just because I wanted more chances for those characters to grow. And I don't think like with the human or whatever characters, we had really set up much that suggested that they could come back.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I would agree.
That's very true. But and potentially you could, though, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, theoretically. Could have some back the tanks lined up.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Toss them in.
Just throw them in there. It's fine.
Yeah.
And I think that I enjoyed kind of taking it down that darker path, but it was definitely a way to make a bigger mess. Because it was definitely a mess after that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I guess we focus on it being like a setting mess and not just a personal mess. Like it was like a big deal for the world, not just us being hot, sexy mech pilots mess.
Yeah,
it definitely could have been a more personal mess, and maybe we could, if and when we do this again, then we can focus more on that more personal mess.
Less of like a very, very oppressive kind of like, because like we all kind of made that decision with our characters and just the way we Kelso and I both made these very distinct, strong revolutionary groups that were like, everything sucks and we're going to change everything. And then we decided. Then Umber made the Dearborn Combine and like this whole thing, and then they just brought all these resources and just owned everybody. We all kind of made that decision very clear that it was very hardcore with that, but we could have gone much softer with it,
especially if we were working with multiple landowner factions instead of in this particular scenario with only Umbra playing a landowner faction. It sort of became the default that the Dearborn Combine was the most active of the landowners, or possibly even the sole landowner coming in. And that makes for a very different set of tensions than if you've got like 3 landowners.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and one revolutionary and 1 or 2 what do you call it? Nobles. Bantraphyll. That's it. You know, because if we were playing with that dynamic, it would have been a very different story.
Yeah, for sure.
I think even changing if we had 1 rebel, 2 nobles, and 1 landowner, it would have been a very different story. Like, just changing who you're playing completely changes the story. And then, or if I had been the sole landowner, and maybe Umbra had been the noble, it would have been a completely different story too, because I probably wouldn't have played the same, what do you call it, like jackboot, hard ass landowners that he did. So
I mean
that's not what you try. I mean, you know, they were more complex than that, but still, you know, you have to admit.
It was as complex as he needed to be. It's all part of his programming.
Indeed. Yeah, so I want to talk about what Drummer Boy mentioned in the chat a little while back, talking about bringing out like secondary characters to give way to the whole system. And I know that's something that we talked about like going into this game that we wanted to do.
We did try a little bit in our solo scenes, but just narrating them I don't think gave it as much punch. I think that Tux's idea of running them more like little microscope scenes where your character you are your own character and everyone else plays NPCs that are part of your faction, that you can say, okay, well, I definitely also want my brother, who's the head of our noble household, to be here. And then you can be like, and the other 2 of you are just cousins, whatever, just fill in the blank. As a way to establish and name, and we could, you know, notate these people down as we introduce them, and then maybe not have them listed until they see screen time, because if we don't see them on screen, we're not going to care about them.
Yeah, for sure.
But I do feel like, at least with how we were able to drag it out, it definitely gave it more impact than if it had just been a one-shot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in previous games, a tactical skirmish has been my least favorite game to play in Firebrands, just because of that, because there was no attachment. It was just needless bloodshed to prove a point that we're fighting and it's bloody. And I felt in this game it did matter, because when we did the tactical skirmish at the end, and when the landowners decided that they were going to go ahead and kill my father rather than surrender, that is what made it so that I would not let them retreat. If I had not lost family members, I might have been more lenient. But of course, I didn't give them the opportunity because I was demanding their surrender. So it just made it into this big mess where neither one of us could back down.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I definitely deliberately tried to bring in some secondary characters, letting CH4 take a little bit of a more passive role in the second half to show off what else the Dearborn is about, how they all work together, and show maybe a bit more of a human element to this big corporation.
And you came up with some of the best names. Violet #Thunder still definitely
Lily Pad Nebula.
Lily Pad.
Yeah. Rip.
Poor Lily Pad Nebula. Never had a chance.
Yeah. Hardly know you.
Yeah, so yeah. I definitely I like what you did there, but I'm not sure how I feel about letting a different character other than your main character take the spotlight in a game if you're not introducing them as your new character after your character died. And I don't know, that's just kind of me being a stickler for the rules more than anything, because I mean it's not like it didn't work. It definitely worked, but
yeah, because one of the things that I've noticed with CH4 as we're playing is that the interactions that I can have as that character are very limited with the other characters. As this
I mean, you gotta eat if you want to have interaction over food.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, there are other ways to handle that, but yeah, things like that, and even the notion of romance and relationships.
I mean,
it doesn't go out the window entirely, but it's definitely
it definitely
different
could have
enough.
been there, but it would. I think we would have had to push towards that more. I think CH4 would have had to want it more. I'm not sure I felt like he wanted that.
Yeah. I don't think he wanted it either, which is kind of why I wanted to widen the horizons a bit.
It wasn't so much he's an AI that makes it impossible for any of us to get in a relationship. It was more, it never was a thing, and then also there was a very staunch philosophical thing between your character and the rest of the group. So it would have there would have been a very hard push for just a very physical thing or something like that, to make that a thing.
And that would have been just unnecessarily convoluted and not something that I feel that I'm ready to handle even.
I liked Adrastia as a character that they came in as having originally been from Bantraphyll, having left to go to Space Academy or what have you, and then getting hired into the Dearborn Combine, and then coming back and being hey guys, space is awesome, and then but only everybody's seeing the corporate mask that's of them, and I thought that was a very I thought they were a more compelling character than CH4, and I was very I was sad to kill them. But I think it was also necessary.
Good.
So I think that having a character that can have that more human connection is kind of important. But I think it was more Sage 4's personality than the fact that they were an AI that was a limitation there.
Yeah, agreed.
Because I feel like you could have had that personality and been a flesh and blood man, and still had it play out pretty much exactly the same, except for the whole dying and coming back thing. But other than that,
it definitely was like a whole thing going on with CH4 that was never like the right time to talk about. Like,
you want to talk about it now?
Yeah, sure. So there's a thing that's been going on a bit in the background, but there was that one soldier that Ceres accidentally killed during the hunting accident that eventually passed away in the hospital. That's that as CH4 was being reconstructed, that soldier's memories was implanted in the same vessel. It became part of the whole like hive mind of like what goes on with the agent. So that was what the whole purple thing was about. It's like when they take over, when they switch to something a bit more like militarily minded. Is like, because I have a lot of thoughts about like CH4 and the Dearborn Combine, and didn't really have like enough time because I also wanted to like show off all the other facets of like what this faction is about. So it definitely could have gone a bit harder with CH4, but I feel like that would have been at the cost of everyone else.
The cost of everyone else, indeed. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. What about you, Tux? Was there any secret backstory to Amon Malik that you wanted to expound upon?
Not really. I definitely didn't plan a lot going in, as in backstory wise. I left a lot of it. It was basically like my main thing was just I wanted to play the like anonymous / Mr. Robot-y / like Watchdogs, like very visible revolutionary thing where they make crazy videos and it's like almost more about marketing than it is about the actual revolutionary thing itself. Like they have a brand and everything. That was kind of like the big punch behind it. But yeah, like background wise, there wasn't a whole lot. I liked the position I gave him in like working at the city hall and kind of being like the liaison thing. I thought that position worked really well for like setting up a lot of scenes and stuff. So that was pretty good. But yeah, it was just that kind of dual thing of like being the leader of this group / having to deal with landowners and nobles every day and being like, oh yes, of course. Well, you do own this planet, so you can do whatever you want to do. This is great. That was fun to explore. But then, yeah, there wasn't anything like hidden in the background that I wasn't like that never really had a good chance to come out. It was a lot of in the moment stuff, kind of just like, oh, that sounds cool. Let's invent another member of the resistance that does this. Like a lot of my NPCs were kind of like came out of the solitaire prompts because like there was the one that was like your crew was working on retrofitting these mechs and like these parts, and then like and ... you're very pleased with their progress and think you're going to do very well or whatever. And so it's like, oh, cool. So I'm going to make a member that's like a tech genius and like figured out a way to get these mining drills that are and just overload them to be cool weapons or whatever, and then made a scene out of that. Yeah, a lot of mine was very in the moment, kind of coming up with stuff.
Definitely. How about you, Estini? You wanna talk about your life and times this series?
I know going in, when I've played this game before, a lot of nobles aren't like very sympathetic. Like they're all pompous and like, or like really about like being rich and noble. And I wanted to do something different with it. And so when I was making her, I was trying to think, okay, what kind of anime protagonist would she be? And so I really wanted to focus more on, okay, so sure, they're nobles, they have palaces, whatever, but what does that mean to them? What does being in charge of these people and this land mean? And I wanted to kind of more think about like the politics and how she feels about it. And I really wanted to focus on her duty to her people. And I think I really got to explore that as things wore on and everything came crumbling down, because even without her name at the end, she still felt that duty that she had to be the one to protect her people. So I feel like I got to do what I wanted with that, so that was good. And just seeing her all like, she was so hopeful in the beginning. She's like, oh, let's all work together, we can find peace. And then at the end she's like, no, they don't get to escape, kill them all. Like I there was a real big turn there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a little bit, I thought that it was very, I think you did a really good job of playing the noble who is not the one that is like in charge of the house, but is not like just flippant playboy that just spends all the money. You were, I felt you were very grounded. Does that make sense? Noble.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
When I made Professor Angela Jones, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, you may or may not have guessed from her name that I was stealing some inspiration from Indiana Jones, and the idea of having like the college professor / adventurer kind of trope. And it only made sense that the people that would be seduced into her revolution are going to be her students that listen to her and her talk of what Bantraphyll was like and what it can be like again, and about how, this is where we went wrong in the past, but with what the new resources that the Bantraphyll is bringing us, we can rise above what we used to be, and I wanted her to be very pragmatic but optimistic, and I enjoyed playing her, and I thought that I think we all made some really interesting choices with our characters in different places, and I really liked that about Firbrands, in that it kind of forces you to make choices, and sometimes they're choices that you wouldn't necessarily like think about making, you know what I mean? So I didn't really have any like secret backstory that I had in mind for Professor Jones either. So she was mostly just out there trying to kick some ass, get some tail, as you do.
Yeah, normal.
Pretty much.
But yeah, I suppose I could talk a little bit more about not just spooky secrets. But bit of what I've been thinking about, like, to like motivate this faction. I think it dawned on me after the first game that I was probably never going to be able to play Paranoia like as a game. So I'm going to try and do like the best I can here. So that we get to this like hyper ridiculous corporation that just do things because they can, and because they have like the money and the power to do so, and that we have this like at the helm this just insane thing that just makes all the decisions for them and like has a lot of power to do so. We saw it with like first off with the park and like how it just like appeared, how it was like built overnight and like eventually like hauled away.
I really like that actually, where
it's like wacky thing.
Plonking down a stadium in the middle of a park and then tearing it down the next day. That was the perfect frivolous use of resources that I think really kind of hit home what the landowners are sort of about, but also just how ridiculously overpowered that they are and how almost futile it is to be trying to fight against them.
Yeah, sure. I will treasure that hot dog conversation forever. Very special place in my heart.
That was so good. And just how disgusted Malik was by the whole thing.
For sure.
Yep.
And I mean, if anyone in chat has any questions that they want to have us answer, either about the show, that about our characters, or about the experience of playing this in a long form, and I'd love to hear them. So
yeah, feel free.
One thing I want to mention, and this is something that I read in chat during the previous game, is that I know at least someone in chat was really shipping Angela and Amon. Was there anything there?
There could have been. I think if we'd had more scenes, if more had been done in the scenes, it definitely could have went that way. But I think just like the scenes they had together were more aimed towards coming together as political allies and not as sexy times. Yeah.
And yeah, it could have gone either way. I think I'll agree that there was a potential there, but it just was not. It wasn't the right moment.
Yeah.
Maybe it would never be. Well, now it definitely will never be.
Yeah.
I mean, unless, Malik gets reanimated into a Dearborn educator.
We probably do have some of your memories in backup.
Sure.
Ouch. That's just... Yep.
Yeah.
What about Siege 4? Like, was there any chance that they could have found romance? Or do you think that they're just completely aromantic in that regard?
I don't know is the thing. Like maybe there could have been something. Like I think it's the way that CH4 works. It's not something that I don't think that's something that he's looking for necessarily. But as we all know with love, sometimes it just happens.
That's true.
So I think it's definitely something that could have happened, but it ended up not working out.
I think the one character that had the biggest chance there was Sirius.
Yeah. I definitely saw potential there, but I think just
yeah, that's something.
When you came to kill me, that just kind of ended it.
I don't know if he came to kill you. There was eventually death of some sort.
I mean, you specifically said you weren't going to back down. And it was a duel to the death, so.
Zonalar has a question from chat. What is the biggest difference between playing Firbrands in a long-form format compared to a one-shot? For me, I think it was having an entire week between picking games and being able to, like, sit and look back at what we did last time and just be and just kind of like rudiment in my brain what I really wanted to see. And the fact that we lived with these characters in our brains for almost 2 months. Because, I mean, we all had our characters created a couple of weeks before we actually started the show. To be able to live with those characters in your brain for that amount of time, whereas in a one-shot, you're making them up at the table, and then you're done with them after 4 hours. So there's definitely a lot more life, I think, that went into these characters. What about the rest of you? What do you think?
It definitely affected my game choices. Since like there was definitely a degree of like, well, I want to choose some of the slower games so we can actually develop the characters and like what they're about and their relationships and stuff. Like I think we talked about that beforehand a little bit. Like we were all kind of like, let's not choose Tactical Skirmish like as the first game or whatever. Like, and something that was definitely like the first episode that was like I think there was like there was a dance, stealing time together, and meeting over food. I think there was like there was a chase. Like all games that were very much like potential for big stuff, but not like they're more aimed towards let's just start building some things. And I think that was a bigger thing for me is like in a one shot you can just be like, you know what, let's sword to sword right away. Let's do this thing. Let's just go. And at least I want to try to take it a little slower and try to build stuff before we tore it down.
Yeah, I think what I like the most about this format is that, yeah, like Kel said, like really have a lot of time to think about what the character is like. I'm also a chronic world builder, so I can't stop doing that. So like, when I get like this week in between sessions, is to start thinking about like how does this fit into like with the world at large? What does the world at large look like? And just having that time to like let the character like gestate and develop, like really like enhanced, like definitely enhanced my experience. Like just getting to know this character and everything that comes with it.
I would say maybe I'm the only person who didn't really give a lot of thought between sessions what I was going to do. Usually I'd have my solitaire game planned out at the end of last session, and then it was just completely gone from my brain because I got a lot of other stuff going on that requires a lot of brain space. And so that's definitely not the thing that enhanced it for me. Like the long form thing, more time to think didn't really affect me because I wasn't thinking about it. But I will say that as far as character development and specifically relationship development, not necessarily like, obviously we had more time to build the romance that happened between Angela and Ceres, but we also got more time to explore the frenemy relationship between CH4 and Ceres. We got more time to see Angela and Malik butting heads. We had so much more time to make those characters matter to each other. And I feel like that was the biggest boon for playing a long form game. But also I definitely we did a lot of the same sort of games because we didn't want to go hard fast. We didn't want to like, hey, let's murder half the cast and have them make new characters, because it wasn't a one shot. We wanted to build them up before knocking them down, like you said, Tux. And so I would say that definitely affected my game choices as well. We did a lot of stealing time together because we wanted to have conversations, not necessarily over food, and also not necessarily where we're arguing, right?
Right, yeah, that's exactly what I was almost like. It'd be cool if there was like 1 or 2 more games where it's about building the relationship or talking or something like that. Because it's like, if I want to talk to you, I either have to argue with you, do it over food,
or try to get into your pants.
Or try to get in your pants. Like we're the only, because that, like,
I think there's a certain expectation of stealing time together to be and try to get into your pants. But I think you guys did a really good job of having that torture interview instead. That I think there's a lot of in between where you can be stealing time together, because even if you're not having like an intense, intimate conversation, the fact that the two of you are speaking alone could be scandalous. You know, and that's why it's stealing time together, and that's why there's a risk of being found out. And so even if you never touch on any of the intimacy moves, I think there's a lot more opportunity that you can play with that without it being like, and I'm trying to get in your pants. You know,
I think that was it. Like the mechanics of that mini game are very intimately aimed. Like I touch your ex. I try to do this.
But the rules are also have a conversation. And if one of these moves triggers, you know, if you want to physically touch someone, you must use one of these prompts, and then they have this formulaic response. But there's no requirement in there that you actually implement those. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that is underemphasized.
The other thing... sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like this very quick point. Like at the same time, like that list is there for a reason. It just by nature of the list existing, it's going to encourage like conversation to go in that direction. Because like otherwise, we could just be talking. And like we're not really playing a game at that point, even though like the rules say it's okay. Like, we're not really engaging with it too much. Definitely like agreeing with Tux here. Like, I think there's room for another game that's more about like let's just get to know these characters a bit more. Like let's just like have these characters like do a thing together.
I would love to see it. Why don't we have a game called The Beach Episode?
You know, Zon said something similar to that in chat earlier, just a few minutes ago. He was like, did it feel satisfying to play the game over several episodes, or did it feel like the feeling you get from watching filler episodes in anime, where you just are waiting for the show to get back to the good parts? And I don't think at any point that it felt like that. I don't think there was ever a time when I was like, even in the episode where I think it was the first episode where I was like in the first game and then just I sat back. I didn't do anything else. I was never involved in any of the rest of the games for that entire session. But I was not checked out because these characters were fascinating, and bringing them in and finding out a little bit more about their lives. I don't feel like I was just waiting for the next thing. I felt like we were getting good stuff. But if we were to have just like the beach episode game, I don't know if that would be better or worse. I would think that there would be a hard requirement on there is only one beach episode per series.
Yeah, even with that would be fine. Like, yeah, just a game where it's not where it, like
where things aren't like super tense.
Yeah, something like that. Just for a game where the point of it is to build things or like develop stuff, and like talking over food is, but if all 4 games in an episode are talking over food, it's gonna be like
boring,
or something or like just something like that. Like, well, because like are a game kind of based or almost around like the episodes where like the if you've all seen Breaking Bad, or actually a lot of shows do it, but like the one that I always refer back to is Breaking Bad, Fly, the episode where they don't change location at all. It's all in the entire
episode.
Yeah, a box episode where it's all
bottle episode. That's it.
Yeah, whatever. There's an actual term for it. Yeah, where it's the entire episode takes place in one room.
Mirror shades.
Yeah, where it's not that it's not intense or anything, but it's very based on like it's very based on
much like just digging into those specific characters.
Yes.
And,
yeah.
It's like get a moment to like see these characters.
Right, totally. Yeah, like that episode or like other like animated stuff where it's like all focused. It's like you learn a lot about those characters because something is driving them to like talk about shit or like something just happened and so they're really focused on like a past relationship and then that gets brought up a bunch or whatever. But like I think it could be kind of cool to see a game based on that. Like come up with a thing and like expose something about your character during this scene and then see what happens or something like that. Like that could be just something like that so games that are based around learning more about them so you can develop more.
That's an interesting idea. I really like it. And
I think
I've
cool.
been thinking of ever since you mentioned this, I've been thinking about like where in the realm of Firbrands would it make sense to have a bottle episode like this? And like one idea would be for whatever reason all of these characters are like on a transport ship like going into orbit, and so they're stuck on that, or classic everybody stuck in an elevator together, and it breaks down.
Yeah.
And
that could be hilarious.
and then the landowner complains about who is maintaining this, and if it was landowner owned, we would have had this fixed, and then you've got a whole different dynamic there. Or like a storm. That's also a definite classic trope, but also something that we didn't really explore a lot about the weather, except saying that this winter was going to be the harshest one yet. And so if we were then to see a harsh winter, or even a summer storm, where it's like, okay, there's a hurricane and you are all stuck together in a shelter. Good luck. It's going to be ours.
One thing that I wanted to say, we've kind of gotten a little off track from where I was going to jump in with this comment, but I'm just going to bring it back, so it's fine. And this kind of goes along with what we said about not necessarily needing another game, but I felt like a lot of times we had to kind of retrofit certain games or certain prompts to fit what we wanted to do. Like, especially with the solitaires, like there was one where I was in the hospital and there's no solitaire that's like, you are recuperating in a hospital room, ... Like I ended up using that to spend time with my family. But we had to I feel like the difference with it being a longer form game, we had to take more liberties to make the game work with our extended narrative than if we had been doing a one shot.
Yeah. Like I feel like I definitely had to like be very, very liberal with what the words meant in it. Like my last one was the prompt, like you're going to meet with your compatriots and someone is missing. The person that was missing was me.
Yeah.
Like,
and that was great.
Yeah.
And I think we were doing the right thing by doing that, and I know it could be a little bit hard to see or think of that, but and as long as we were staying true to like the core of the prompt, I don't think it was going too far off base. Like I think that having a meeting with your family be your parents, your dad and your brother come to you while you're in the hospital is totally reasonable. And having someone is meeting you're supposed to meet with your compatriots and someone's missing, and have that someone missing being you because your character is the one that's captured. I think that is definitely true to the heart of the game, and it just takes a little bit of creative reading to see it. And I think if we could think of more creative interpretations for those prompts without having backed our character into a corner first, I think it could lead to more interesting narratives too.
I also think that this is a place where we are very deliberately breaking the way that Firbrands is meant to be played. And so I think this is something that we noticed that this is not what like Solitaire is made for.
It's true.
Yeah, and something that I like picked up during our like student time together talk is that also like the games all, I think they all assume some sort of like tension, like there's like very like time sensitive pressure going on. Because like spending time together, there's also like that implication of like we don't have a lot of time. So like let's just take a moment here and like breathe out, and the way that we talk about time, like the way the game takes place over months rather than like a week or a day, means that that tension kind of deflates a little bit.
I don't think so necessarily. I think that having the I'm gonna go back to when my one experience of playing The King is Dead, because I think that it shaped a lot of it kind of changed a lot of assumptions that I had about how to play Firbrands, as well as the game of The King is Dead itself, and that was in that game we did a bunch of time skips forward, like between every single game we played, it had been weeks or months, and the people I was playing it with had these little cards with like different areas of the land and like different castles. So we had like a randomly generated map that we could refer to, and that's not standard in the game, but I thought it was a really cool touch that they had added. And being able to be like, okay, so I'm up in my family's castle in the Highlands, and you know your character is coming as a a courier, and we're going to have dinner in the Great Hall, and that's the setup for the scene. Or our two characters are on the battlefield facing off against each other, but we're both hired by third parties and we're not like representing our own clans in this, and that's our meeting sword to sword. And having it in The King is Dead, where you are in more of a medieval setting and it can be assumed that to get from point A to point B is going to take a week of travel, makes it a little bit easier to push those time frames out. Whereas in Firbrands, I mean, we've probably got hyperloop trains and definitely have spaceships with faster than light technology, because that's literally the premise of the game, is the Bantraphyll is needed for those spaceships that have faster than light technology. So it makes it a little bit harder to do those time jumps, because even getting from one side of the planet to the other is going to take a matter of hours, not a matter of days. And so it makes it but on the other hand, you can think about like, how often do I as a revolutionary want to show my head and make a big tactical push? Probably not that often. So it would also make sense to keep time moving forward that way. So
yeah, so we have some more questions from the chat that have been rolling in.
Yes,
there's a couple questions in chat. I don't know if you guys are done with that conversation. If you're not, I'll back off. But
no, I'm fine with moving on.
Okay, Zenolar wanted to know what everyone's most favorite moment was in the game. I'll start. My duel with CH4, top notch.
I think that probably my most favorite moment in the game was in the first dance, where Ceres and Angela had this like romantic tension going on, where Angela thought she was dancing with a stranger and was like, she's hot and I feel something. And Ceres is like, holy fuck, I'm dancing with my teacher.
And I feel
also,
something.
She's hot. And I really love that moment and that dynamic that it kind of set moving forward. So
it was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
no, please. I'm just going.
No,
across
mine will depend on what Umbra says because he might take mine.
Yeah, I think our two might be this. Yeah, I think it could be either way. But either our talk at the very first scene, or like at the very first episode, or in the very last.
Yep. Either of those.
Yeah.
Those were both really amazing scenes.
Yeah.
If I was to pick a scene that I was not a part of, it would have been one of those two scenes, for sure.
They were both so good.
Yeah.
They were both so good.
Yeah, for very different reasons. They were.
Yeah, our first one was very silly. It just like kind of very much showed off like how flippant the landowners were and how pissed I was. And the last one was like, no, like we're serious about this. And I'm like, I am too. Bring it on. Just kill me. Just kill me. Do it.
I really enjoyed that callback. And just that moment of like, are you willing to die for your beliefs? And the answer is yes. And okay, well then you're dead now.
I feel like there were a lot of callbacks in that last episode to that first episode, which I thought was really good too.
I think it was
for sure.
Definitely.
I have to give a special shout out to the phrase, "The people of Bantraphyll, you're being lied to. You're being lives are no longer your own."
That was.
I had to go watch that again to get the wording right because I had to make sure it was perfect.
It was perfect. And I think that was a really good like narrative pacing arc that just all of those callbacks in the last episode, because I think we established a lot of good stuff in the first episode, and then to just call back to all of it in the last episode, especially how it changed, definitely made it that much more poignant. And let's take another question.
We've got one from Drummer Boy.
Yep. I haven't seen everything either. Do you feel like the longer form encourages for character interactions versus mech screen time? I don't know if it necessarily encourages that, but I feel like we played it that way. We didn't see a lot of anybody's mechs until episodes 3 and 4 even.
We associated mechs with fighting a lot.
Yeah.
Like
that's true.
Yeah, mechs are very much like a fighting thing.
Yeah, like we could have done some more ceiling time together with mechs, or we could have brought them into other places. But we very much were like, if the mechs are coming out, there's a fight, or like there's something happening.
That's true.
Because and I think he's asking that because one of the he was in a one shot that Kelsa and I were involved in, where I feel like the mechs were a lot more prominent. And like there was like a mech racing battle, a mech racing battle type thing. And like you can definitely do this longer form and still feature the mechs a lot. But I think it's just kind of personal choice. Like we wanted to focus more on the people behind the mechs, and so we kind of stripped that away. But you could totally do this and have the mechs be one of the main parts of it. I could see it going both ways.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. I know I didn't spend a huge amount of time like thinking about my mech or putting a lot of thought into like what does this mech look like, and in previous games of Firbrands I have and I don't think I put a lot of time into like thinking like how does my mech move and what makes it unique, and until like the very end. But like my only notes on my character sheet for what for what my mech was is that it's almost unrecognizable from its original form, retrofitted and patched so many times it can be hard to tell if it's a mobile frame at all. Crouched down, it looks like a pile of rubbish. Like that was my note from day one. But we didn't really see that until like the very end, when I had like all of my mechs just rise up from being piles of rubbish around and being like, surprise.
Yeah, there's definitely one thing that I noticed or that I thought was cool when we did with the free for all, is that like I've gotten the feeling from listening to Angela and Malik talk, that Angela was a bit more of the like hands off approach to the whole revolution. Like we're gonna like take our time and we're gonna like strike eventually, whereas Malik is more like direct, more like let's go, let's strike.
Yeah.
She was much more of a
long-term thing,
tactical precision hits to targets that are going to give us the most gain for the least resistance.
Yeah.
And I think Malik was more cause mayhem.
Yeah, which is why I thought it was so interesting that during the free-for-all we had Angela up front, like wrestling with CH4, whereas Malik was like with like a sniper rifle from far away. Like to like see like that you sort of started adopting each other's policies in a sense when it comes to like outright war.
I think a little bit, because I think that it had reached a point at that time where it had gotten past where stocking, like where we had stocked up, and the tipping point had been reached where it's like, now we really have to step up. Just doing tactical strikes and biding our time is not going to work anymore. Whereas I feel like on the flip side, that Malik had reached a point where he's like, actually, maybe we've been a little reckless.
There was a degree of that. I also wanted to show off my cool gun.
Very valid.
That's definitely fair. So yeah, I think that it could have gone another way. There could have been more mechs, and there could have been more mech fighting, or like mech-centric like grabs for
activity,
supplies and whatever. And I definitely think if we were to completely break the solitaire games and make them into multiplayer games, that there would be a lot more openings for having mechs featured in a way that is not going to be a fight to the death.
Yeah, for sure.
I also feel that, at least with my character specifically, since I went with the backstory where she had been recently forbidden to pilot a mech, that's part of the reason why a lot of my scenes were not involved in it, because she literally, she wouldn't have been allowed to. So it was almost like when she was in it, it was because shit was going down.
Yeah, I think
so. That's me specifically.
Yeah, I think CH4 definitely comes from like a similar perspective, where like he doesn't have much reason to be in the frame unless shit's going down, because like Hasper specified, his frame is just like a bigger version of him, so that he doesn't have like much reason to be in it, like during like normal conversation, like normal events. Like it's very much a combat thing. That's definitely like how it has felt to me, at least. Like the frame is for fighting. It's not really for much else.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I do think that feeds into what we've been talking about, that we didn't want to do much fighting, at least not to start with. So it sort of ended up steering away from the mech side of things.
Yeah, I think it was also related to just how we set up are a particular set of tensions in this version of Bantraphyll. That
we
led
went,
away
we went really big.
Yeah.
We could have gone very small. Like, oh, the landowners are here, the nobles are here. It's not like, it's not very oppressive. We also picked characters that were very into it. We could have picked, like, I could have made a revolution that was like, I'm part of this group, but I kind of just got romanced into it. Like, if I talk to some cool landowners, and maybe I'll get pulled over to their side if they have some good points. Or like I could, like, another way, like if I had made a landowner that was like, I just got hired in, like, they're just paying me, but, like, maybe a noble could, like, talk to me and be like, hey, guess what? They're kind of shitty. Like, hey, they are really shitty. Like,
and also you're cute.
Also, you're very attractive.
Don't forget that one, because we are
good old compliment sandwich.
Attractive mech pilots.
Yeah, I think if this is done again, I think it would be cool to see it, like, not as intensely world drama tension based and much more like character tension based. Like, what'll happen if I betray my family and go join these revolutionaries, or like, which would also be bigger, like if solitaire gets broken and there's more NPC time, like, to see the, like, potential ramifications of, like, my landowner bosses are going to be really pissed, but, like, in the current form of it, there's not a lot of, like, there isn't a you tell your bosses what you're going to do scene, like, or whatever. Like, it's the only
or you defect to the other side,
right? Yeah, there's no defect to the other side move or anything like that. I think it would be kind of cool to, like, almost, I don't know if, like, we would, like, it would take almost redoing the game to make it, like, well, like, it's not aimed for a long-term play this over a campaign. It's made for, like, hey, get together, be cool, be hot, be mech, and then be done. It would be interesting to see this designed to be like, no, you can, like, it's play over the course of several weeks or whatever, and, like, there's moves around, like, when your stuff changes, move to this thing and change how your solitaire works or whatever, or, like, games based around featuring NPCs or whatever. Like, it'd be cool to, like,
yeah, for sure,
morph it into that and make it work a little, like, it didn't not work, but it could be cool to see it mechanically aimed for that, I guess is the point of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think there's a lot you could do with it to reinforce, like, the style of play that season 2 would have to enforce, because our starting situation is so very different from where we, like, started at.
I feel like if we came back to do another long form game of Firbrands, I would not want to make it like a season 2 of the same world. I would want to start fresh.
I agree completely.
And start from the baseline of, Bantraphyll is not at war, and work up from there, and potentially get another player in here so that there's a little bit more variance in what our factions are represented. Maybe even 2, so we would to have a full 6 player, each faction represented at least once, and then
that could be cool.
Not necessarily just be like, okay, there's 2 of each faction, but, like, the potential to have, okay, well, there are 3 landowners and 1 revolutionary and 2 Bantrash, or something where it's not perfectly weighted, but that there's more representation out there.
Sure.
I think would be very interesting. And I know when we were first setting up to make this game, there was a 5th player who had wanted to join. Unfortunately, her schedule did not allow it, which made me sad, because I would have loved to play more with her.
Yeah.
But I definitely think if we're going to revisit Firbrands in a long form, having another player or 2 will make a difference.
Totally.
For sure.
For sure. Yeah, Firebrands and by extension the King of Stud is definitely a game where I could see where like usually I prefer smaller groups like 3 or 4, maybe 5, but because this game is so very focused, it's like okay, like now you have your moment and now you have your moment and I think it could really work for larger groups. Like I could definitely see playing the King is Dead with like 10 people and like just doing that for an afternoon.
I know that specifically Firebrands is 3 to 6. I don't remember what the King is Dead is off the top of my head. I'd have to pull up my PDF, but
it's definitely something that I could see like still being fun with a larger group.
I just wanted to chime in and say I've played a lot of Firebrands and not a lot of the King is Dead, so I'm going to ignore that part of it. But I've actually had the most fun with this size group that we've played here. I've played it with some larger groups, and I haven't played it with 3 people. I think the minimum I've played it with is 4, and I think I have played it with up to 6. And I feel like with fewer players, even though having more characters to explore the factions in different ways is definitely interesting, you can tell a tighter, more cohesive story when you're just focusing on a few people. So that's just true. Something to keep. That's something to keep in mind. And that was just my experience with it. Like as you expanded the cast, so to speak, it just seemed like things got more convoluted, and not everyone felt involved in like the main story. It felt like there was like maybe a little side story, and then like there were like 4 people who were having this big thing that didn't really impact the others. So it was just kind of hit or miss there.
I did play with it. I have played Firebrands with 6 people before, but it was everybody but like only me and one other person had played before, and so that meant that there were 4 new players, and that made it a little bit clunky. But I think that was mostly from the inexperience of the other players, and I think 5 is a pretty good sweet spot as far as having enough factions represented without it being too many people. But so I do agree with you, maybe 6 is too much, but I think 4 or 5, I definitely would not want to do a long form game of this with less than 4 players, because it would be way too intense to keep going that long with 3 players.
For sure.
So that's just my 2 cents on that. So Zahn, to answer your question, would you play Firebrands as long form campaign again? Yes, I think we all agree that we would.
Yeah.
Yes, and then I guess as a asterisk on that, it would be very cool to see the mechanics like morphed to like accommodate. Yeah, to like be aimed to accommodate it. Like would be interesting to see. It works, and you can make we can definitely do it. But like just seeing games or morphing it to do that would be even cooler, I think.
Yeah, I think we've all seen things over these 7 sessions that we could add to the game or change about the game to accommodate long form play a bit more.
I think this was definitely a successful experiment, and I think all of us have our little game designer ideas going in the back of our head of how we could improve this in a longer form game, because there are so many parts of playing Firebrands that I love and I want to steal for other games, but also to be able to play it as Firebrands but in a longer form game is it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've also got several other games that I would like to try in this format, just to see how they work. I've had some thoughts about trying Lady Blackbird, for instance.
That was the game I thought you were gonna say.
Yeah, in this format, and I think that could work really well. It's like really like dive into these characters and like explore how they connect in a sense that you just can't do in like a 4-hour session. So you gotta wrap things up eventually.
I think it would be interesting if you were to do Lady Blackbird in a longer form game like this to definitely make sure that you have a cast that fills out all of the main characters that are presented in Lady Blackbird.
For
and
sure.
so that's going to be a larger cast.
I really want to though.
We played it 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. And it was good. It was fun. I played the Goblin.
The Goblin's always a good time.
And it was fun being a Gobbo. And I think moving that into a longer form game would be really interesting because I don't think it's, well, it's probably possible, but to be able to succeed at the goal of escape and get to your destination. I don't know if you can do that in 4 hours, and even if you can, it would feel really rushed.
Yeah, and I think that game has a lot like going for it that doesn't really show up in like a 4-hour session. Like the whole advancement system is built in that we rarely get to see. And like seeing how the characters grow, not just like as people, but also like mechanically.
Sure.
Like, yeah, we only got to see advancement, I think, at the very end of our last session. You impersonated the captain from like a move that you took.
Yeah. And
poor captain.
It was fun, and I think it would have been. I think you're right. That game is one that would be very interesting to see in a longer form session. So, we're reaching about an hour and a half. I think we probably should. I think it's probably good to wrap it up here. Like we normally say, up to 2 hours, but I think we've hashed out all the things we wanted to talk about, unless there was something that has been on your mind about this game that you wanted to share that we haven't gone over.
I mean, I could rant about philosophy, but it could probably be a few hours. So I'd rather not.
I don't think that's too related.
I've been thinking a lot about what that ending means. Not necessarily like the scene that we ended on specifically, but like one thing I wanted to discuss before we leave this forever, my heart. But where do we see the future of this Bantraphyll going?
I know I was talking about that before we came on, that I was considering writing a third little introduction, but since we weren't actually role-playing, I scrapped the idea without thinking about it too hard. But what I saw in the future is the exportation of Bantraphyll trees to other planets. And so Bantraphyll is not, the Bantraphyll tree is moving to other planets, and as those trees start to reach maturity in other worlds, the monopoly that Bantraphyll had on the Bantraphyll is going to disperse, and so the boom economy that it had reached is going to collapse a little bit, and I don't think they're ever going to go back to being a poor backwater planet again, but the like intense need for the landowners to claim that ownership is going to dissipate once they have other planets where they are more firmly established able to produce this as well. That was my vision for the future.
One question that I have basically is who runs Bartertown? Who's in charge on Bantraphyll after what happened? Like, what are we thinking there? Like, does the nobility come back? Are the people okay with that? Or does something else happen.
I don't see the nobles coming back from this, personally.
No.
I think that the landowners, when they tore them down and stripped them from their titles, that they did something that the revolution has been trying to do for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, is there still wealth inequality on Bantraphyll? Oh, hell yes. Are there still people who are using that to get power they haven't earned? Oh, hell yes. Like, I think even though you've taken away their ancient titles, money still turns the wheel.
For sure. As far as who winds up in charge, I feel like there's probably some kind of new democracy that winds up putting people putting someone in the position of power that I mean, if I hadn't murdered her, may very well have been Adrastea Capella if they had not died in that last fight, as someone who'd been educated off planet and then came back with new universe savvy policies, who may or may not still be secretly in Dearborn's pocket.
Yeah, I think that was definitely like their like long-term plan to like eventually get someone native who was like still on their side to like run this planet for them, so that have that like mutual trust. Like integrate Bantraphyll in that way. So I don't think that happens. I think the Dearborn are going to be like an employer on the planet. I think that they probably like run the refineries. I think they make an effort to like do the whole like exporting of the trees, because there's been a decision made in some boardroom that they don't like Bantraphyll anymore for some reason. We're gonna try and just like, get these people's money away from them.
Well, they don't like us taking their money away. What the hell?
We're making jobs. It happens that money is going to other people.
So, Tux, what happens to Gravitas in the future?
I don't know. Like,
because in a way, one of their goals has been achieved.
Right, exactly. Like both their leader is gone, and what they wanted to do has already been done. So I don't know if it just kind of like everybody just like, okay, guys, it's been real, it's been fun.
But
Peace
the
out.
interesting thing, though, is that at least in that moment of conflict, Ceres kind of stepped in, and she still does feel that duty to the people. So I just,
yeah, like I don't know if maybe well, we're gonna keep doing what we're doing, but we're gonna stop flying this flag. Like I don't know if like Gravitas itself is no longer a thing, but like the people are still doing their own thing. Like they're like, guys, so real talk, we don't need the demon masks anymore.
They were a bad idea.
Tell what you're saying.
It's not gonna do that anymore.
Like they were fun. It was fun while it lasted, but we don't need the voice modulators anymore. We can actually do this.
Take the edge off of it. And speaking of Gravitas and people that may or may not be living after the war, what happens to the prisoners? Because there were a few people that were captured by
four people. CH4, Oculus Cloud, Imp, and Goblin.
Yeah, I was mostly concerned about Imp. How do we feel about Imp as a person?
How do we feel about Imp as a person? He's kind of a little shit.
I mean,
Imp's like a worm tongue in training. So I hate him.
I mean, he defected to the other side, right? Go ahead.
May or may not have been after
like,
brainwashing.
Yeah, like one thing that I like about like portraying the revolutionary, because I think there's a lot of ways you can do that, and it's not just this like this hero of the people that like
Totally
wants the best for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's also the version that's like this snotty brat who just does this because it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
we just like, yeah, fuck the police, right? Where's the like the sugar bar branded t-shirts?
Exactly.
Ironically.
Yeah, totally.
Like just like shows off that side of like what the public is like. They're not like these like glorified like heroes of the people.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'm all about like showing off like different sides of the factions. We also got to see this a little bit in Orion Cross. There's like this nobleman's like, yeah, sure, take this mansion, we have more. It's like just seeing.
Like, I did love that line. Yeah, take the mansion. We've got more. That was that's pretty A+ right there.
That's good.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot you can do with these factions. I think we did some very cool things here.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, I think that answered all the questions that I had. So, perfect timing. Let's wrap her up, kids.
Okie dokie.
Wrap her up. I'm gonna go across from the way my screen is. So we're gonna start with Umbra.
Okay. Yeah. Hi everyone. This has been really fun. You can find me on Twitch and Twitter at Dealer Umbra. I'm here. I've tried to do a bit more streaming as of late. I decided to stream some Golden Sun on a whim yesterday. It was a lot of fun. I call it the best Final Fantasy, even though it isn't. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I'm gonna try to do a lot more of that. I'm gonna try and get back into some Persona 3 action that started up a while back and then never got around to playing again. We'll do a bit more of that, and then we'll see. I've got some role-playing ideas, maybe some of the concepts we've talked about here, but we'll see where those take off. And yeah, this has been really fun.
Awesome.
Very, very glad to have been a part of it.
Tux.
Yo. Hey everybody, thank you for hanging out with us through this. I hope you had a lot of fun. I know we did. I'm Tux. You can find me all the places /Tuxerdamus. In a little while, we've got Magic Dance, so if you need some more cool sci-fi stuff, you can get it there if you need it. Later on tonight, we have Urban Shadows game, which is fun. Yeah, just thanks again for hanging out and being a part of this. I'm definitely glad for the chance. So thank you, Kelsa, and thank you, Estani and Umbra, for hanging out and doing this.
All right, and then Estani.
Okay. Hi everyone. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you so much for like loving this as much as we did. I had a lot of good times being a part of this show, and I'm sad to see it go, but I am so glad that I got to be a part of it. I graduate in a week, so I might be doing streaming stuff after that. So if you want to hit me up here on Twitch, twitch.tv/Estani or twitter.com/Estani. Also, if you're watching this after the fact and you still have questions about, hey, why did this happen the way it did? Or what are your thoughts on this thing about Firbrands? Or, hey, I want to do Firbrands too. What are your thoughts about this? You can hit me up on Twitter. I'm sure you can hit up these guys on Twitter. Like, I'm not looking at the stream. I don't know where anybody is. I think there's one here and then like some over there. But anyway, like hit everybody up on Twitter. Who doesn't like talking about their characters? Be like, yeah, this was awesome. So, but again, just And Kelsa, thank you for having me on the show.
I miss playing with you.
I was really, really, really excited when I got that private message from you, and you're like, "Hey, do you want to do a thing?" And I'm like, "I want to do all of the things, everything." And this was a really great cast. You guys have all been awesome, and it's just been magic to be a part of.
Thank you. And since she didn't toot her own horn, Estanie is the one that made these beautiful overlays and the great little animation that I play before and after the show. That was her doing. So mad props for that, and thank you so much for helping make this show beautiful, because they would have been a lot less epic if I'd had to do it myself.
You would have got there, or you could have hit up Tux, because Tux has some pretty sweet overlays on his shows.
I definitely would not have had the amazing pictures of each of our characters, which you drew. They're all spot on, and I love them. So thank you again. You can find me here on Twitch and on YouTube. It's /KelsaDelphi. On Twitter, it's @Kelsa. You can see that right below my name. I mostly play role-playing games on other people's shows. I'm going to be on Magic Dance in about an hour and a half over on Tux's channel. This evening, I'm going to be on AP Gaming Reels channel for Winter's Edge 2. On Wednesday evening, back over to Tux's for Longfall. Thursdays, me and Umbra are over on RP Glory's channel for something.
Yeah, we'll figure out what we're gonna do.
What exactly we're there for?
It'll be a thing.
We're in between games right now, so we're doing a lot of one shots, and we often don't find out what that one shot is going to be until we sit down and talk to each other 5 minutes before the stream. I mean, that's not entirely true, but it's a surprise. So anyway, please, follow, whatever. In the future, I am going to be starting a new show in 2 weeks. On Friday evenings, I'm going to be hosting a game of Burning Wheel with Golden WH as the GM. Very much looking forward to that. We are playing. The game is being called Harvest Valley, and if you've ever played Harvest Moon or Stardew Valley, you may have an inkling of where we got that name. We're going to do something that I have not seen yet, but I've always wanted since I picked up Burning Wheel. We are going to be playing a peasant farming simulator. All of us live in this small town, and my follow whatever needs to be a t-shirt. Thank you, Drummer Boy. So we're all going to be playing in the small town. My character has just come from being an accountant in the big city and has no idea how to farm, but has inherited a farm, and is going to be interacting with the other characters who've lived there longer, as well as a bunch of NPCs that we're going to flesh out the town with. And it's going to be interesting. We're planning on 6 sessions, and it's going to progress over. Wait, is this 6 sessions or 4 sessions? Might have been 4 sessions. God damn it. Anyway, it's 4 to 6 sessions. I'll double check my notes on that when I can. But that starts in 2 weeks on August 25th. Is that Friday? Calendar. Yes. Perfect. All right. Well, that was flawless. Thank you all again for coming out. I'm going to switch us back over to our amazing music by Drummer Boy and this cute little animation. So, good night, everybody, and thanks again for coming out.